All right, so this is the last video in the series, and hopefully you're coming to a point where you are comfortable with what's going on and you're getting close to having, well, you should have half the essay done. You should have my introduction, my paragraph 1, your paragraph 2. And so you've looked at the appreciation side of the question. We're now going to look at the depreciation side of the question, or you're going to look at the depreciation side of the question. It's 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph are the positives of the depreciation. The second paragraph, or the second section, is the negatives of the depreciation. And you're going to write this part of the essay. I've got there for you on the screen the section from the introduction that previews these paragraphs. So the first of these paragraphs, so paragraph 3 or section 3 of your essay, depreciation of the currency have positive effects as evidence. So that the content we're looking at here is Australia's trade. We know that a depreciation will improve our international competitiveness, see source 1. A depreciation of the currency will enable us to increase exports because they're cheaper in Australia. And so the example, or the practical example there we're giving, is service-based exports. Now, in terms of our sources, we're going to see since that mining boom, since sort of 2014, the Australian dollar has come down significantly. It was hovering around 1 to 1 or parity with the US. It got down as low as probably about 68 cents and is now hovering in sort of the mid 70s. That is a depreciation from where it was, and coincides with the period of increased growth in Australia's exports, particularly of services, of tourism and of education. And look up some data on that. There's been some recent data about service-based, I'd need to look it up, but there was a significant number of foreign tourists, foreign students in Australian universities. It might have been 50,000, but look it up. It was very recent. Foreign students in Australian universities, a significant number, a significant export made possible because Australia is cheaper than it was. Not the only reason, a contributing factor. Okay, we've also got the natural advantage that we speak English, and so many and a safe, developed country for people to come to. So there are other factors, but one factor is, and what's going to suit us for this essay, is that depreciating currency has allowed for increased international competitiveness. That is a positive, and therefore the information, or the Australian economy information we're going to use, is around exports. You can look up balance of goods and services if you like, improved exports because they're cheaper, and ultimately the specific area of exports is not about mining here because it is post-mining boom. We're talking post-mining boom, okay, because that's when the currency has depreciated. So that'll be paragraph or section 3 of your essay. And then lastly, we need to look at a depreciation having negative effects. And in our preview there, or our introduction, we've said around external stability. So it's that the currency is depreciating, therefore we're worried a little bit from an external stability sort of perspective. It's one of the measures of external stability. So depreciating currency might mean rapid capital flight, as happened in the Asian financial crisis. Not so much what's happening in Australia, but depreciating currency could mean that, and does undermine the external stability of the nation a little bit. But more specifically, we're looking at things like the increasing size of the primary income account due to an increase in the value of foreign denominated debt and an increase in the servicing costs of that debt. And there are some ideas for the negatives of a depreciation, I should say. All right, last thing I do want to say is I'm being conscious not to repeat myself in terms of opposites. What I mean by that is the disadvantages or the negatives of a depreciation tend to be the reverse of the advantages of an appreciation. So when we're talking about a depreciation and what we wrote about earlier when we were talking about an appreciation, we wrote about international competitiveness. We've already written about that. We've already written about balance of goods and services. What we want to do is we want to introduce a new point. We don't want to sort of say the opposite or and vice versa. And so we haven't spoken about the valuation effect. We haven't written about that. And so that's why I've saved that to this last spot, so that we're not essentially just writing, well, when there was an appreciation, that was bad for international competitiveness. Now there's a depreciation that's good for international competitiveness. Or when there was a appreciation, it caused it caused. You get my point. Okay, you get my point. I'm not going to go on and on and on, but you get my point. All right, so that's all I want to say about that, and I now want to just sort of stop. I want you to write your your third and fourth sections of your essay, and then start thinking about a conclusion. Your conclusion is only going to be brief. Okay, your conclusion only need very briefly restate your main points. You're probably out of time by the time you get to conclusion, so just make sure that in your conclusion you restate some of your main points, not even as much detail as your introduction, but restate some of your main points and your thesis statement, and that's all you really need to do. It only need to be minor. It does need to be there, but it doesn't need to be extensive. Okay, and that's all. Thank you. Good luck.